Catherine, you are bang on. I've made a career out of being simple, and I think it's important that we continue to do that. Next up, we have Rob Cartwright, Energy Services and Solutions Director at Cotality.
Thank you, John. 15 minutes, wasn't it?
In your dreams.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I thought building homes was the easy bit. So I'm going to talk about retrofit and about navigating complexity with integrity. When I talk about integrity, I'm talking about integrity from a data perspective and a compliance perspective. So making sure that you're doing things right from a compliance perspective. And John likes data, so I keep using the data word, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, can you? So, but a bit about Cotality. Who are we? Well, it's a new brand, and we're less than a month old, I think. So before that, we were CoreLogic. We acquired a company called Parity Projects just over a year ago, but we've been working in this sector for over 20 years now on retrofit of housing. You'll see lots of numbers and acronyms up there. A lot of it is central Westminster government. I'm not sure what you call them up here. I probably don't want to know. So Westminster government initiatives, so Eco, GBIS, they are national, so they cover Scotland. But things like Warm Homes is England and Wales, I believe. As well as energy efficiency, we also provide software for mortgage lending and valuations. So 98% of mortgage valuations flow through our software on a daily basis, and that covers the whole of the UK. And it's interesting, I've been with the business now for 12 years, and I've a colleague who heads up the mortgage lending and valuation business. First 11 years, we were never in a meeting together. I'm amazed how many meetings we've been in together in the last 12 months, because lenders are finally becoming much more focused on energy efficiency on properties that they're lending on, because they are now having to report on the energy efficiency of their mortgage portfolio. So really interesting time to be in the business. This is where we often start with landlords. Help, my data is in a mess. If you're sitting out there thinking the same thing, don't worry, because everyone's in the same boat. They've got multiple data sources, they're not up to date. What we do is we'll pull all those data sources together and help them to build a baseline model for their portfolio. So the first thing to do is to get a baseline for your stock. Be that one house, if you own it, if you're an owner-occupier, we provide services for the owner-occupied. We've got a national one-stop shop for homeowners called EcoFurb, which you can Google afterwards if you want help and advice on your own home. But we mainly work with large social landlords, local authorities, mortgage lenders looking at a portfolio of properties. We will get the energy performance data that we can. It's frustrating that government own all the underlying data for every energy performance certificate ever produced, but they won't share it with anyone. So that's changing. We're in discussions with Westminster and with the Scottish government. That will give us a much better model. But we take what we can and we build a baseline model from that. And then we allow you to model scenarios. But we also look at health. Climate change is obviously becoming more of an impact from overheating now. You've got to consider that in retrofit. Climate risk, flooding, those sorts of things. Literally not burning houses. Well, we did get a few burning houses in London, didn't we? We haven't had the horrors they've had in California recently, but it's getting there. So get your stock model right to begin with. Online advice, so that if you're a local authority, you can provide an online tool for your constituents so they can look at their own home, see what their options are. We model thousands of different improvements to a property. We don't limit it to what the EPC will do. The EPC is quite a blunt tool in terms of things it will tell you can do to improve the property, if I could say that correctly. I didn't have a drink at lunchtime. We use the latest prices. We use the latest carbon emission factors for the grid. We forecast future carbon emission factors based on government targets. So you can model, you're looking at 10, 20-year horizons. The grid is going to be very different in terms of carbon intensity. Your use of electricity for heating will be very different than it is today. So you've got to factor all those things in. You can figure in your own pricing, etc. And then when you want to start a project, you need to do a retrofit assessment. It's a term used in PAS 2035, if anyone's heard of it. It's not as prevalent in Scottish funded schemes as it is south of the border, but it's a retrofit standard. And that retrofit assessment will look at the energy performance, the condition, and the ventilation. Ventilation is a really important thing that is often overlooked. When you're retrofitting a property and making it more airtight, you really need to consider ventilation. Because at the moment, the house is really leaky and people don't need to worry about fresh air because it's coming through the gaps in the walls and in the windows. But when you've made it airtight, you've got to wonder, where's the ventilation? Where's the fresh air coming from? How are we going to exhaust this stale air? Then you can build a whole house plan. So as I say, we look at thousands of models for a home. You can set targets, so you can set SAPC, net zero, a certain heat demand, a certain fabric efficiency. Our software will then model thousands of scenarios iteratively to come up with the best package to meet that target, the most cost-effective, or whatever priorities you've set. That's really the starting point. Then you know what you've got to do. Oh, sorry. The then important thing is the workflow management. So you've got a decent data set finally. When you're retrofitting, you need to make sure that that data set stays current and correct. So through that workflow, you need to be able to manage that data. That's the golden thread. This is where I started. This is what I've improved. This is where I've ended up. And then reporting, because if you get any funding, there's probably going to be someone, stakeholders, investors, government, that will want reporting on what you've achieved. How am I doing? He's not stood up yet. It won't surprise you that we've got software solutions for every stage of that journey. And we've a stand upstairs. You can come and talk to me and colleagues later. Okay, so it's used by local authorities, social landlords, not just social landlords, though. Our landlords include Church of England, National Trust. They're all landlords. They own domestic properties and they want to make them net zero. And lenders, as I spoke about earlier. Oh, he has stood up now. So that's great. You've got your baseline data. You've identified what you've got to do to get to your 2045 target. But what order are you going to do it? So let's add a time dimension then. So you've got a plan for every home, but you've got decent homes work you've got to do. You've got maintenance work. You've got boilers you'll be replacing. You've got windows you'll be replacing. So you need to sequence that retrofit with that maintenance work. Where's your funding coming from? In your 10, 20-year horizons, governments are going to change, funding's going to change, regulation's going to change. So you've got to have a model that's dynamic and that will respond to those things. You've got to consider place-based things. It's a bit easier for retrofit. We don't need to worry where we're putting the houses because they're already there. But you've got to consider tenants. Technology is a real issue. I had a heat pump installed recently. I consider myself a geek. It took a while to get my head around how the bloody thing worked and how to get the best from it. So then you really need an optimized roadmap and you need to identify what skills do you need. So where's that going to come from? We did modelling for the Labour Party for their manifesto, not the election they won, the one before. That's no reflection on our modelling, by the way. But we modelled the retrofit of every home in the UK, because we've got an energy model for every home in the UK. We can identify what trades are going to be needed, in what areas, in what volume. And as it happens, we've got a software solution for that as well called Asset Manager Workspace. So I think, oh no, just an example of what we've done. So Halton Housing, based in England, northwest, mainly Manchester, 7,000 homes. We identified £18 million of saving if they scheduled their retrofit in line with other programs, other funding streams. That works out at £2,500 per home. That won't be fully realised because costs will change, as I said, regulation will change. But they've got a much better idea of what order to do things in now. When you've got the scaffolding up for PV, think about replacing the windows. When you replace the windows, think about EW, external wall insulation. Those sorts of things are all built into the model.